Hello and a warm welcome to this special broadcast coming to you live on the Federal on the current situation in Bangladesh. What the world is witnessing are some of the very deadly pictures. In fact, Bangladesh is going through one of its deadliest moments after a cycle of protests, violent deaths, and after which, what everyone saw yesterday, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's residence was stormed by the protesters, and after which Sheikh Hasina was forced to flee the country. She's come to India, she's landed into India amidst reports that probably she's trying to take asylum in United Kingdom. And as we are speaking, there is an all-party meeting which is underway in Parliament. External Affairs Minister S. Shankar has called an all-party meeting to brief all the opposition party leaders as to what is happening. But the big question is that Sheikh Hasina having landed in India, how does it impact? Because if at all there is a change of government in Bangladesh, how will it see India? What will be India's approach towards the new government? As of now, the army has taken control and they've said that they're forming an interim government. But eventually, whichever party takes the reins, it depends and it will impact in some way or the other the foreign relations between India and Bangladesh. And the big question is that what is India's approach going to be? And how long can Sheikh Hasina continue to remain in India? And will it be useful for India to keep her here as long as she can? Or can it prove lethal politically and diplomatically as well? Joining me now is a very special panel. Ambassador Veena Sikri, as everyone knows, she's been a former High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Thank you, ma'am, so much for joining. We have K.S. Dakshin Murthy, who is the managing editor of the Federal. Thank you, Dakshin, for joining.
Thank you.
We have Professor Aftab Kamal Pasha, who is a West Asia expert. He joins us from United States. It's quite late night there. So thank you so much for joining. And we have
Thank
Rana
you.
Banerjee, who's been the special secretary to the Secretariat. Thank you so much, Rana Banerjee, for joining. And I'll begin today's conversation with Veena Sikri. How do you really see the situation evolving in Bangladesh? Do you see the situation going out of hand, or the army having taken control, it can really, control the things as they are now?
The situation remains volatile. As we know, yesterday the army chief made an announcement that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has resigned. She met the president. She's left the country. What you're saying about whether it's up to her where she wants to stay. Yes, it does seem that she has applied for refuge in UK, but there is no answer yet. But certainly, if she wants to stay in India and she makes a request of that kind, the government will consider it positively because she's been a long-term friend of India. So I don't see any problem with that, regardless of the government in power. The situation in Bangladesh remains very volatile. Yes, the chief of army staff did make an announcement that he's going to have an interim government. He's going to give names of people to the president. Final indication of that, there is a last minute announcement that maybe Professor Mohammed Yunus, who might be heading the interim government. But there are other announcements. One newspaper reported Mr. Salimullah Khan, who might be the chief. So obviously there's some kind of jockeying going on. I think that more and more it's becoming evident that the Jamaat-e-Islami is trying to take full control. And it is the forces of the Jamaat-e-Islami that are playing a very prominent role. In fact, the indications coming from the cities outside Bangladesh, the towns and cities outside Bangladesh, talk about a very disturbing situation. They talk about people being killed and their bodies being hung from trees, and the Hindus are under attack. The temples are under attack. It is a very much, I would say, as far as the reportage from outside Dhaka is concerned, it's a repeat of 1971. When there was that the Pakistan Army's Operation Searchlight. This is what they did. They went into the villages, they went into the towns, they in fact hit the students as well. It's very clear now that what happened in the past, what happened beginning with June, when the students went on the streets again after the High Court gave a decision to overturn the abolition of the quota.
Wouldn't you say, I mean, whatever the situation has reached, but isn't Sheikh Hasina responsible for this, given the quota in the government jobs, because of which all this started? Then the repressing the media, internet shutdowns, not allowing enough protesters to come and raise their voices. So this situation, who is to be blamed? Isn't Sheikh Hasina to be blamed for this situation?
Look, let me tell you very clearly that as far as the students' quota reform movement was concerned, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and the students were on the same page. In 2018, when the students first protested about changing or removing the quota of 30% for the children of freedom fighters, it is Sheikh Hasina's government who accepted that. And she abolished the quota in 2018. So for 6 years, there was no quota. Then this year, in June of this year, 2 months ago, somebody went in appeal to the High Court against Sheikh Hasina's government decision, and the High Court accepted that and said we are restoring the quota. But then Sheikh Hasina went in appeal to the Supreme Court, and on 21st of July, the Supreme Court gave a decision which favored the students and the Prime Minister, and said that, okay, from now on, quota will be only 5% for the children of freedom fighters and 2% for others. So all this was fine. The quota reform movement part of it was out of the picture. But in the meanwhile, because there had been this press conference where Prime Minister had spoken about a reference. She made a reference to Razakar with nothing to do with the students. It was a rhetorical reference where the press was asking why did you keep the quota. She said I removed the quota, and of course if you talk about quota, it will certainly be for the children of freedom fighters and not for the children of the Razakars. Now that led to some a disagreement between the students and the Chhatra League. And at that point, the Shibir, the Islamic Jamaat-e-Islami student wing came into the act. The BNP's student wing came into the act. It was complete mayhem. It was out of the students' hands. And I would like to say that clearly from the visuals we saw yesterday, where people are bringing down the statue of Sheikh Mujib, father of the nation, where the home of Sheikh Mujib is being burnt, this is not the students doing it. The students are patriotic people, they are young people, but what we saw
But
in the
who do you think are the forces behind dethroning Sheikh Hasina from Bangladesh? Do you see this as a big conspiracy? And then I'll go to the other guests.
I will say that when Jamaat-e-Islami entered the scene with the Shibir and this, they took over the students' movement. And it is them who had as their target, they always had as their target to remove Sheikh Hasina from power. In fact, both the BNP and the Jamaat-e-Islami had repeatedly been saying ever since the elections were held. By the way, in the elections, it was the BNP who refused to participate. It's not that Sheikh Hasina made it a non-participatory election, but the BNP refused to participate. Now they're calling it a non-participatory election. Whatever it is, they've been calling for her resignation for a long time. And the actual decision to remove her, I think, was made by, they say the army chief told her, but the faction in the Bangladesh army, which is pro-Jamaat-e-Islami, it's a very strong faction, which is pro-Jamaat-e-Islami. They seem to have the upper hand now. It is the Jamaat-e-Islami who is calling the shots. And Mohammed Yunus, whether he becomes the actual chief or an advisor to the chief, is to be seen, because Mohammed Yunus is very close to the Western agencies.
Right,
He is very good friends with Hillary Clinton and the group there, the deep state
right.
there. So it's a very complex situation. I would not like to, at this moment say anything with finality, except that the very disturbing news coming from the interiors of Bangladesh, this makes me think this is the hand of the Jamaat-e-Islami. They are the ones who act like this. They are
Okay.
killing people.
Right. So if you're saying that it's a hand of the Jamaat-e-Islami and which is becoming a dominant force, Professor Pasha, now I'll come to you. But we know that Sheikh Hasina has been a trusted ally of Narendra Modi government. And the very fact that she chose India to, straight away come from Bangladesh and find a safe, she's been given a safe house. And as we are speaking, as I just informed the audience that there is an all-party meeting which is underway where all the political parties have been informed about the current situation in Bangladesh. But doesn't this make the situation more complex for India? Supposing, because there are reports now that Khalida Zia has been released from the jail, and we do not know yet as to what role she is going to have in whenever the new government is going to be formed or the interim government. How much of a contribution will she have? But then, does this moment not enhance the complexities vis-a-vis India's relations with Bangladesh?
There are two, three factors. One is, see, BNP has been consistently taking a very different approach from the Awam League as far as India is concerned. And Jamaat Islami, we know it's a right-wing organization. It has been fanning anti-India feelings for a very long time. This court issue and the quota issue is just a pretext. And for quite some time, there were forces in the making. And Hasina, Sheikh Hasina was painted as a puppet of India and being very close to Prime Minister Modi and Indian policy supporting the Indian companies led by Adani or Ambani. And this was seen that she has lost independence and that India calls the shots. So all these anti-India forces for quite some time were being encouraged, manipulated, financed, supported, and the initial signals point to the role of the United States, although immediately it is not coming out in the open. But all these signals point towards the United States of a very dubious role it has been playing in planning anti-India protests, not only in Bangladesh but also in Nepal, in Maldives, and elsewhere. So in that way, the release of Khalida Zia was expected, and the expected role of Jamaat Islami in any provisional government, interim government, is going to be certain. And Muhammad Yunus, we know he had a very strained relationship with Sheikh Hasina. He was convicted, and over nearly 200 cases were lodged against him, and a very uh, vicious campaign was launched against him. Although he has fairly good credentials, not only in Bangladesh but also internationally. But powers, interested powers that we would try to make use of this his person's popularity, and that is how he is now being projected as a key person. The students, for no good reason, they are demanding that he should be given a prominent role. So you can easily deduce from this who is behind, who is going to benefit, and the internal turmoil directed against Indians, against Indian temples for particular religion, and the threat of more violence if their demands are not accepted. So all these go to show that there are powerful forces working to undermine India's interest because Bangladesh was seen as the most trusted partner in the South Asian region, very close for a very long period. It was not just during Sheikh Hasina,
But
but earlier also.
is it a Professor Pasha? Is it a wise decision for India to have given a safe haven to Sheikh Hasina? Of course, she has been a trusted ally, but to keep her in India for long, will that be a wise decision?
I don't know if we have already given asylum to her. Maybe it is a transitional phase, but I would fear her presence, would not be in the larger interest of the country. Because you see, once she is here, she would definitely try to be in touch with the Awami League, which is a very powerful force still, all said and done, even though she has fled the country. But they have. Several institutions under their influence, money power, and a fairly large following. So it is not a spent force which should be written off. So if Sheikh Hasina stays here, it will be easy for her to be in touch and manipulate, and that will add fuel to the fire. So in that way, I don't think it will be in India's interest to keep her for long. Maybe for short duration, that may be a sensible decision, but I would definitely not like to see her because of the clout she still commands or her followers.
All right. I'll come to Mr. Rana Banerjee now because he himself has been a bureaucrat and you've cut your teeth into Bangladesh as well. So, with all the tall claims that, our intelligence is foolproof, and Ajit Doval also making claims that, we have an eye on everything, does the way things have unfolded in Bangladesh, do you see this as some kind of an intelligence failure on the part of India that we couldn't preempt the situation?
No, not an intelligence failure, but definitely handling of the situation. I would not entirely agree with Ms. Bhavina Sikri, though she has put the chronology of the developing events. Uh, so clearly, what has happened is a mishandling and a misreading of the spontaneity of the students' movement as it developed over a genuinely felt cause of dissension. Now, this could have been better handled if the authoritarian manner of Sheikh Hasina's treatment of issues had not been so starkly manifest, especially after the January elections. So, if she had been able to get to the students much earlier and sit down with them, uh, probably the situation could have been diffused. Again, I am not so sure that it is so much Jamaat control. Some of the student leaders definitely will be having links with the Jamaat, but I would be more inclined to agree with the suggestion made by Professor Pasha that this is part of unfolding of an agenda on which the Americans have been working for very long. They dislike Hasina's power, and they have been trying to destabilize her for long. Another aspect is how the military will handle the ongoing or the evolving situation. We don't know how the military will handle the situation. Now, the chief, Zaman, he has been army chief only for a month. He has also a problem. He is distantly related to Sheikh Hasina. Now, any connection to Sheikh Hasina charged the brush in a negative manner, not only for India but also for the army generals within their own hierarchy. So he will have to see how the lay of the land is within the army, what is the sentiment, what are the linkages between the army and the Jamaat. There are below the surface connections which have long existed between the Jamaat and elements within the army who have uh, pro-Pakistani sentiments. In the DGFI, there has been this type of thing. Hasina was doing a great job in cleansing these elements gradually, despite resistance from within. Another problem is that within the Awami League, I agree, the Awami League is still a force. BNP, Khaleda Zia is too old. She cannot come back to power or play any role. Tariq Zia is abroad in England. He cannot really make much of a difference unless he comes back and faces the music here. Now, within the Awami League, there are elements who have long contributed to a particular type of ideological, underpinning of a secular type of society. Now, these middle class elements, middle level, old Awami leaguers, have lately been largely ignored by uh, uh, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Instead, she has encouraged a new class of money bag holding businessmen to come to power with handling of various contracts and all that within the Awami League. This has damaged the capacity of the Awami League as a mass force. So they will have to take time to recover and go back to their old moorings before the new elections are held, whenever that happens. So it's a process of a period of uncertainty, and India will have to tread very delicately to extricate itself from the brush that has tarred India as being too much blindly supporting Hasina. India will have to gradually distance itself from that situation and
Let me just say,
signal its support for progressive democratic elements who have long stood by ideological the bastions which have been important in socio-cultural situation in Bangladesh.
Right. So you rightly put it that blind trust in Sheikh Hasina would not help India go a long way. Ambassador Sikri, you wanted to make a point? Yes.
yes, I was wanting to say, when a person is deposed, especially in the manner in which Sheikh Hasina has been forced to resign and flee, it's very easy to criticize the person, and it's very easy to criticize India and saying you had blind trust, etc. All that happens, But I think that I'm not talking about the individual over here. I am talking about the ideology, the secularism, the liberalism that Sheikh Hasina represented. And I think that the growth of Bangladesh, the economic growth that Bangladesh has had in the last 10 years, particularly 10 to 15 years, particularly, this has been remarkable. And in fact, on many social economic indicators, they have done even better than India. So I think millions of people have been taken out of poverty. So there are always both sides to any question. I think that again, the students, I would say once again, that are right up to 15 July or 14 July, the students and Sheikh Hasina were on the same page. And actually, there was no problem because they actually, I don't know if you know, but in the case filed in the Supreme Court, some students group joined the case with the government, with the Attorney General. They joined the case. So actually, their own lawyer was representing them. So it was not a question of a clash between the students and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. But it is, as I said, when the violence entered the scene. Now here you can say that whether Chatradi, somebody said this. I'm not going into all those details, but when violence entered the scene, we had political mayhem coming on the ground, and the students were no longer leading the situation. I cannot see students in Bangladesh who are very patriotic and a wonderful group of people. I don't see them bringing down the statues of Sheikh Mujib. I don't see them burning Hindu temples. I don't see them killing people in the villages and hanging their bodies on trees. I don't think those are students doing it. So I think we have to be very clear. I know there are many, many forces at work, and who is behind it, we will know. Now, if you talk about Jamaat-e-Islami, their closest links are with Pakistan. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt about that. If the other countries may be behind Pakistan, but it is Pakistan who has the direct links with Jamaat-e-Islami. And they are the ones who tried, because it is a repeat of 1971. I go back to what I said. In 1971, it was Pakistan behind Jamaat-e-Islami. And today it is Pakistan behind Jamaat-e-Islami. Now, in between, you've had the
No, but
victory of the
Ambassador Sikri, one bit I want to know from you, and then I'll go to Dakshin, that how is India going to manage its relations with Bangladesh if there is a change of regime? A blind trust in Sheikh Hasina is fine. She's been a trusted ally. There's no harm if she's landed into India and Modi government is giving her a safe house. All that is fine. But now, as far as the foreign policy towards Bangladesh is concerned, how will India manage its relations?
two things. Yes. At first was again, I do not accept the reference to blind trust. It is just that the government of Sheikh Hasina was one committed to friendship with all. She developed the relations with India. It was a mutual interest. If she has developed the economy of Bangladesh, it is by mutual interest. We had cooperation. That's one thing in the past. That's fine. We did all that, and today Bangladesh has come to a very good level. Now, looking into the future, fine, we have to deal with the government which is in power. If the army is in power, we have to talk to them. If the Jamaat is in power, we have to talk to them. Fine, that is absolutely a given. And so I can give the example of President Muizu's government in Maldives. There's been an India out campaign there. There's been, that take away your aircraft or take away your Air Force personnel. We've gone through all that. But still now we are working with them. And there are big strong voices in Maldives saying, no, we want the Indian tourists to come back. There was an interview by the head of the tourism just 2 days ago. So similarly, what we have done in Bangladesh, the economic cooperation, the connectivity, the development, pipeline, friendship pipeline, bringing petroleum products, the development of the ports, all that is going on. Will it continue? Of course, we want it to continue. Certainly, we want it to continue, and for that, we have to interact with the government of the day. And of course, that will happen. But I'm trying to say that since going forward, that will happen, that is fine. But to recognize what has happened, to recognize the forces behind what has happened, and to see what is the situation on the ground. I agree fully that Awami League is a force to be reckoned with. It is known, for example, right from 1971 onwards, that you had roughly 35-40% of the vote for Awami League, roughly 35-40% of the vote for BNP, and then you have a little bit for Jamaat-e-Islami, and then the smaller parties concerned. So this has been there, and I think that Awami League certainly on its own or with anybody else's consult, they should regroup. They should. All forces should be. It is going to be a fresh election, and all parties want to take part. They have to regroup. So I would say that the forces of liberation, the forces of secularism, continue to be important. And the people of Bangladesh, I think, would be interested in remaining the forces as important. As far as Jamaat-e-Islami is concerned, they had a problem in registering themselves for the election. They were debarred as a political party by the judiciary, not by Sheikh Hasina's government, by the judiciary. And the reason was they wanted, the Jamaat-e-Islami felt that the constitution of their party, the constitution mentioned the name of Prophet Muhammad, is higher than the constitution of Bangladesh. So this was the point of clash. Now, what will happen on that now? There are people calling for constitutional change in Bangladesh. It's a very volatile, complex situation. And it's something that India will follow, and India will certainly look to talk to the people who are in power about it.
Right, but Dakshin, certainly the situation is complex and volatile. But how does it impact India, given the fact that Sheikh Hasina is in India? We do not know how long she'll continue to stay here. Then there are a lot of Bangladeshi citizens who stay in West Bengal and also in some parts of the country. So, how is it really going to impact India, whatever that this turmoil in Bangladesh? Yes, Sakshi.
So the first point that we have discussed is Sheikh Hasina being in India at the moment, and whether India, whether it will work for India or not. But the point is that that is really besides the point, because right now Sheikh Hasina has been India's friend and she required India's help, and India has given that. That's it. Now what India does in future or what happens is entirely the call that will depend on many other different factors. Whether Sheikh Hasina wants to go elsewhere, whether other countries are willing to take her. So it's not entirely in India's hand whether they want to keep her or let her go. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is that the real impact probably would be we're talking about the elephant in the room, China. China is a huge player in Bangladesh, and China is the biggest trading partner for Bangladesh. And there has been recently this tussle on this Tista River project between China and India, and Sheikh Hasina and the Awami League, the government was tilting towards India, and in fact, almost the project was very much with India. So it was a joint India-Bangladesh kind of a project that was being talked about. So what would happen is the impact on India would really be on the economic front, because if there is a government that comes to power in Bangladesh, which is say the BNP government, or a government which is pro Jamaat or which is not exactly pro India, then the immediate impact will be on many of these economic agreements and all that, and the real beneficiary would actually be China, because
Hmm.
either which way, China is not going to be affected by this, by the change there. So they're going to benefit. So it's largely on the economic front that India will feel the pinch if there is an anti-India government. Number one. Number two, if there happens to be a right-wing pro-Islamic government in Bangladesh, then obviously it's going to have large repercussions on India, because India is also being ruled by a government that is very pro-Hindutva, very right-wing. So it's really the ingredients are there for future complications on the social front. So it's really, it's I think it's far more sensitive than what we think, and it's not just the political side of it. Politics, yes, will go on. We know the ideally for India, it would be good now if the army takes over and then the army remains for a while, which is not which under the current dispensation. Okay, so the other alternative would be for the Awami League to return, but even without Sheikh Hasina, that would be better. But if these two possibilities are not there, and the BNP and the pro-Islamic sections come to power in Bangladesh, then it's going to be pretty complicated. India really can't do much unless they use their channel to resources in Bangladesh, and India is very heavily involved in Bangladesh for a long time. All of us know that. So if India manages to swing something in its favor, that would be creditable for the
Right.
government, Indian government.
So, Professor Pasha, given the fact that yesterday S. Jaishankar had met Prime Minister Modi and they had met over this cabinet committee on security, today there is an all-party meeting. Now, do you think that the government of India must have already opened some back-channel talks with the interim army, which has taken over the reins from Bangladesh?
Yeah, it is expected that India would explore the channels of communication because having invested so much and having been so close, the rupture cannot be so abruptly cut, and communications can be stalled. So there will be. I mean, Indian High Commission is there, the High Commissioner is there, and MEA, I'm sure, will be in direct contact with them. But the situation which is unfolding there is not clear. We don't know who is in charge. Whether the army has been able to fully stabilize the situation, whether the army listens to the president about the provisional government, or the students are on the same wavelength with the army or the president. Still it is a very fluid situation. We need to wait and watch this situation, and don't take any hasty steps. Of course, the all-party meeting is a very good beginning here, which is a new thing because the India government has been for sidelining the opposition here, and it is a major challenge, foreign policy challenge on which Mm, in fact, the Prime Minister should have addressed the all-party meeting, not the Ministry of External Affairs, because it is such an important issue, concerning our border, the fear of influx of refugees and our economic stays, and also Bangladesh becoming a haven for anti-India forces, whether it is Pakistan or China or America or any other. If they get a stronghold there, they can create mayhem in the northeast and beyond. So it has geopolitical implications, and what India is aspiring to, it has serious implications. So in that way, any hasty decision would not be in our interest, and West Bengal being a major stakeholder in what is unfolding in Bangladesh should be fully on board because many of the steps which India has taken has not taken West Bengal into confidence. So there was a tug of war between Calcutta and New Delhi, which should have been avoided. So in that way, the internal situation also here is important because a similar situation may develop in Nepal or elsewhere, which necessitates the involvement of states bordering neighboring countries. So, in that way, foreign policy involving the opposition and other parties is a welcome development, and I hope this all-party meeting will become a regular feature, not only
Right.
to strengthen our democracy but also to respect the people's mandate.
Absolutely.
Mr. Modi also should not behave like a dictator, like how he has been doing this in other circumstances. So it's a lesson for all dictators that any infringement of the popular mandate is not a good thing to be
All right. Now
taken.
let me come for the concluding remarks. I'll come to you, Ambassador Sikri. You were raising your hand. I saw you. But what is the future of Khalid? What is the future of Sheikh Hasina now? How do you see her? Where do you see her in the coming months? Uh, and are there any chances she will go back and revive her fortunes in Bangladesh? Yes.
Look, I was raising my hand because I don't think we should be making comments on the internal situation in India. We're not talking about India. Whatever one person's individual political predilections are, let's not go down that route to make it seem, as though there's a complexion of position within India. I can say a lot about, West Bengal, central government, etc., all that, but I don't want to go into all that. And certainly, I do. The role of China is well known. If you're talking about Pakistan, there has to be China behind Pakistan. So I think that is also very clear. What you asked about Sheikh Hasina and concluding comments, she is no longer in power, and whether she stays in India or she stays somewhere else, I'm sure her interest in Bangladesh will continue. There is no doubt about it. And she will, interest in the sense of the Awami League, as I said, still has an organization. They, in fact, Awami League and Jamaat-e-Islami are the only two parties in Bangladesh who have grassroots cadre strength. The others are not cadre-based parties, but these two are. So, as a cadre-based party, the Awami League cadre will not want to be abandoned. They will certainly want to, keep in touch with their former prime minister and former head of the party, and that will continue. I mean, I think she's still head of the party in that, in any case. So now the other thing is about the final comment is, of course, about what will happen to the internal situation in Bangladesh. I think it's a matter of great worry because the political situation, which we don't know which forces are going to come to power, whether it is backed by the CIA, you have Yunus, backed by Pakistan, you have Pakistan and China, you have the Jamaat-e-Islami. So that is evolving. The internal economic situation in Bangladesh, I'm sure the people of Bangladesh themselves want stability to come back. They want economic development to continue. They want the factories to function and continue the exports. They want the jobs to come. After this whole demonstration had been about jobs for students. So, and that was a matter of great sympathy. Even Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fully sympathized with students and supported their request
Right.
for a quota. So those demands will remain, and if the jobs don't come, if the economic uncertainty continues, if even small businesses, MSMEs are not allowed to function, then it's going to be chaos inside Bangladesh. So I think that this is the situation that we want to have it come under control, because we do know
Right.
very vividly that this has an impact on the situation in India
All
in the bordering regions. And we,
right.
in fact, have already declared a curfew in the region of about 200 meters along the border. So we don't
Right.
want there to be any kind of instability which will affect the neighboring regions of India. So we have many concerns of our own, looking after Indian territory and Indian interests and Indian citizens. We have looked after the students coming back to India who were studying in Bangladesh. And all neighborhood policies is a very complex matter. And I think that to say that, it's to attribute it to various internal matters in India, not true, because India, the people of Bangladesh, the students who come there are about large number, in the tens of thousands of Bangladeshi
All
students
right.
studying in India.
Yeah.
So I think we want all that to continue. We want the relationship with Bangladesh to continue, despite any kind of difficulties. And I think that the Indian situation, the projects we have started, they're important for Bangladesh as well. The Bangladesh people, the Bangladesh government will want those to continue. They need to talk to us as much as we need to talk to them.
All
It's
right.
mutual.
So, right. So, situation is certainly chaotic, and I'm afraid I'm running out of time. That's why I had to cut short Ambassador Sikri. And coming to you, Mr. Banerjee, now for the concluding comments and induction. Mr. Banerjee, so what are the big learning lessons from this moment which has evolved in Bangladesh? What are the learning lessons for India? Mr. Banerjee.
The learning lessons are that we should not too closely align with a uh, center of authority which is seen to be authoritarian and seen to be against the civil society's belief or support for an evolving student movement based on democratic demands. Also, we must learn to develop a capacity to engage with forces who will come on into the new scene, who are other than Awami League, other than Hasina, and the perception that is there in Bangladesh. India still is a very strong regional power, but if India is seen to be associating uh, in a positive way with forces who are motivated for development of Bangladesh. And in this context, I agree entirely with the telling comments made by Professor Pasha and also uh, the ones made by Darshan. It will be easy for China to come back into contention, but not so easy for pro-Islamic or radical forces to uh, completely swamp the intrinsic students' movement. So that is something we must keep in mind while engaging with whoever is coming into the new evolving situation in Bangladesh.
All right. So, Dakshin, whatever the situation is currently, how would you summarize the situation towards the end of the program? What does India need to do, and how do we, keep an eye on Bangladesh as well? Yes, Dakshin, you'll have to unmute yourself.
More than India doing anything, ideally, what Bangladesh should be, it should be traversing towards a government that is democratic, because this is one count on which nobody will support Awami League and the Sheikh Hasina government, because they really compromised on democratic norms. There was heavy repression, the media, the students, so it kind of burst out. So it's a lesson that there is no alternative to genuine democracy. Number one. And number two, it's in India's interest that Bangladesh remains secular. The secular forces are strong in Bangladesh. It's definitely adds to the health of the subcontinent without any doubt. And hopefully, India does whatever it can to ensure that these two important factors are kept in mind in Bangladesh, with whatever strength it has or influence it has in Bangladesh to going forward.
Absolutely. So it's a fluid state, a fluid situation in Bangladesh, and we'll have to keep an eye on whatever is happening. And if there is any important moment, we'll come back with you for another live discussion on the evolving situation in Bangladesh. Thank you so much, Ambassador Sikri, Professor Pasha. It's quite a late night, so good night to you, and thanks for coming on the Federal. You're joining us from US. Thank you so much, Mr. Banerjee, Mr. Murthy. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.